The moment Nathan Ashford rode into Pinos Altos, New Mexico territory, in the scorching summer of 1878, 3 different men warned him about Clara Owens, but he had already spotted her standing outside the general store with her wild auburn hair catching fire in the afternoon sun, and he knew without question that she was absolutely perfect. "Stay away from that one," old Pete Winters muttered, nodding toward Clara as Nathan tied his horse to the hitching post. "Nothing but trouble follows her everywhere she goes. Her daddy was a gambler who got himself shot, and her mama ran off with a salesman when Clara was just 13. Girl has been raising hell in this town ever since." Nathan barely heard him. He was 24 years old, had been cowboying since he was 16, and thought he had seen every kind of woman the frontier had to offer. But Clara Owens stood there in a simple calico dress that had seen better days, with dirt on her boots and defiance in every line of her body, and something in his chest tightened in a way that had nothing to do with the thin mountain air. "I appreciate the warning," Nathan said, though his eyes never left Clara. The second warning came from the shopkeeper himself, a balding man named Henderson who leaned across the counter when Nathan came inside to buy supplies. "You are new in town, so I will give you some free advice. That girl out there, Clara Owens, she has gotten 3 men run out of town and 2 more into fistfights that landed them in jail. She does not take to courting, does not take to being told what to do, and does not take to much of anything except causing problems." "What kind of problems?" Nathan asked, genuinely curious now. "The worst kind. The kind that make a man forget his good sense." Henderson shook his head. "Last month she broke Jimmy Peterson's nose when he tried to steal a kiss. Month before that, she won $200 off Samuel Green in a poker game, and his wife nearly left him over it. And just last week, she outshot every man at the Independence Day shooting competition, and then donated all the prize money to the church just to make the mayor look stingy." Nathan found himself grinning. "Sounds like she keeps things interesting. Interesting is one word for it." Henderson counted out Nathan's change with pursed lips. "Trouble is a better one." The third warning came from the sheriff himself, a weathered man with silver hair and tired eyes who stopped Nathan on the street as the sun began to set. "I saw you watching Clara Owens earlier," Sheriff Daniels said, "and I saw that look in your eye. I have seen it before on better men than you, and it always ends the same way." "How does it end?" Nathan asked, though he suspected he would not care about the answer. "With heartache or worse. That girl is 22 years old and has been fending for herself since she was barely grown. She trusts no one, needs no one, and wants no one. She takes work where she can find it, lives in that old cabin up past Miller's Creek, and comes to town only when necessary. Men have tried to tame her, tried to win her, tried to break her. All of them failed." The sheriff looked Nathan up and down. "You seem like a decent fellow. Find yourself a nice girl who wants a husband and a home. Leave Clara Owens alone." But Nathan could not leave her alone, because at that very moment, Clara turned the corner and nearly walked straight into him. Up close, she was even more striking than from a distance. Her eyes were the color of honey in sunlight, with flecks of green that reminded him of spring grass. A faint scar ran along her jawline, and freckles dotted her nose like someone had scattered gold dust across her face. "Excuse me," she said, her voice lower and smoother than he expected. Then she noticed the sheriff standing there and her expression hardened. "Sheriff. Nathan." She said his name, though he had not introduced himself, and he wondered how she knew it. "Miss Owens," the sheriff said with a slight nod before walking away, clearly done with trying to warn Nathan off. "You are the new hand at the Double R Ranch," Clara said, studying him with those remarkable eyes. "Arrived 3 days ago from Texas." Good with horses, better with a rope, and supposedly faster with a gun than anyone they have hired in 5 years. News travels fast in a small town, Nathan said, recovering from his surprise. Small towns have nothing better to do than gossip. Clara shifted the package in her arms, and Nathan noticed they were library books. And you have been asking about me. Have not said a word about you to anyone, but you have been listening to everyone else talk about me. A hint of amusement crossed her face. Let me save you some time. Everything they told you is true. I am trouble. I do not need saving, do not want a husband, and do not have patience for cowboys who think they are different from all the others. So whatever you are thinking, stop thinking it. I was thinking you look like you could use some help carrying those books. I have been carrying things just fine on my own for years. Never said you could not, just offering. Nathan held her gaze, refusing to look away first. No strings attached. Clara studied him for a long moment, and Nathan had the distinct feeling she was seeing right through him, reading every thought and intention he had. Finally, she shook her head. I do not need your help, Nathan Ashford, and I do not need you getting any ideas about me. Do yourself a favor and listen to whatever warnings you have been getting. They are all true. She walked past him then, her shoulder barely brushing his, and Nathan stood there watching her go until she disappeared around the corner. His heart was pounding like he had just broken a wild Mustang, and he was grinning like a fool. The next morning, Nathan rode out with the other ranch hands to move cattle to higher pasture, but his mind kept drifting back to Clara. He found himself wondering what she was doing, what her cabin looked like, why she lived alone instead of in town. The questions buzzed in his head like persistent flies. You have got that look, said Marcus, one of the older cowboys who had been at the Double R for 15 years. He was a solid man with a thick beard and a knowing smile. Same look every man gets when Clara Owens crosses his path. Just curious about her is all. Curious is how it starts. Marcus adjusted his hat against the sun. Then it becomes fascination, then obsession. Then you are standing outside her cabin in the rain like a lost puppy, begging her to just talk to you for 5 minutes. That happened to you, happened to my brother. Never did get over her, even after he married someone else. Marcus shook his head. There is something about that girl that gets under your skin and stays there. Best thing you can do is admire her from a distance and move on. But moving on was not in Nathan's nature, especially not when something felt this right. He had spent his whole life drifting from ranch to ranch, town to town, never finding a reason to stay anywhere longer than a season or two. He had seen beautiful women before, had even courted a few, but none of them had ever made him feel like Clara did with just one conversation and a warning to stay away. Over the next week, Nathan kept seeing Clara around town. She seemed to appear whenever he least expected it, always busy with some task or errand, always alone. He watched her haggle with the butcher over the price of beef, saw her help an elderly woman cross the muddy street, caught her reading on the church steps during a Sunday service she clearly had no intention of attending. Each time, he wanted to approach her, but something held him back. Maybe it was the memory of her warning, or maybe it was the growing list of men who told him to stay away. The banker, the doctor, the blacksmith, the hotel owner, they all had stories about Clara and the trouble she brought. Yet none of the stories painted her as mean or cruel. Instead, they showed a woman who refused to be controlled, who spoke her mind even when it got her in trouble, who helped people when they needed it but never asked for help herself. It was on a Thursday afternoon, exactly 10 days after he first saw her, that everything changed. Nathan had ridden into town to pick up a repaired saddle when he heard shouting coming from the saloon. He recognized Clara's voice immediately, sharp and angry, cutting through the usual noise of the establishment. I said no, and I meant it, Dalton. Now get your hands off me before I break your fingers. Nathan did not think. He just pushed through the saloon doors and saw Clara backed against the bar, a large man with greasy hair and whiskey on his breath gripping her arm. 3 other men stood nearby, watching with the kind of interest that made Nathan's blood boil. "The lady asked you to let go," Nathan said, his voice carrying across the suddenly quiet room. Dalton turned, his face flushed with drink and anger. "This is none of your business, Cowboy. Clara here owes me money from a card game last month, and I am collecting my payment one way or another." "I do not owe you anything," Clara snapped. "You lost fair and square, and now you are drunk and grabbing women who want nothing to do with you. I will grab whatever I want." Dalton's grip tightened and Clara winced. That was all Nathan needed to see. He crossed the room in 4 strides and grabbed Dalton's wrist, twisting just enough to force him to release Clara. She said no. That is the end of it. Dalton swung at him with his free hand, but Nathan had been in enough bar fights to see it coming. He ducked, released Dalton's wrist, and planted a solid punch in the man's gut that sent him stumbling backward into a table. Cards and poker chips scattered across the floor. "You are going to regret that," Dalton wheezed, reaching for the gun at his hip. "No, you are going to regret it if you draw that weapon." Sheriff Daniels stood in the doorway, his hand resting on his own gun. "Dalton, you are drunk and causing trouble. Again. Get out of here before I throw you in a cell to sleep it off." Dalton looked between the sheriff, Nathan, and Clara, his face twisted with anger and humiliation. "This is not over," he said, but he left, his friends trailing after him with disappointed looks at the interrupted entertainment. The saloon slowly returned to its normal volume, and Sheriff Daniels gave Nathan a long look. "Thought I told you to stay away from trouble." "Trouble found me," Nathan said. The sheriff glanced at Clara, shook his head, and walked out without another word. Nathan turned to Clara, ready to ask if she was all right, but she was already heading for the door. He caught up with her on the street. "Wait. I did not need your help in there," Clara said without stopping. "He was hurting you. He was drunk and stupid. I have handled worse." She spun to face him, her eyes flashing. "And now everyone in town is going to say that I needed a man to rescue me, that poor little Clara could not take care of herself. Who cares what they say? I care." She took a breath, visibly trying to calm herself. "I have spent 8 years proving I can survive on my own, that I do not need anyone. And then you come along playing hero, and now all that work is for nothing." Nathan understood then. It was not that she was ungrateful. It was that her independence was all she had, and she thought he had taken some of it away. "I am sorry," he said, and meant it. "You are right, you were handling it. I should not have interfered." Clara looked surprised, as if she had expected him to argue. "Oh, well, good. But for what it is worth, I did not help you because I thought you were weak. I helped because he was hurting you, and I could not stand by and watch that happen to anyone." Nathan met her eyes. "Man or woman makes no difference to me. Someone needs help, and I can give it, I do." Something in Clara's expression softened, just a fraction. "You really mean that?" "Yes, madam." She studied him again with that penetrating gaze that seemed to see straight into his soul. "You are different from the others. How so?" "They all wanted to save me so I would owe them something. So I would fall into their arms grateful and suddenly want to be their wife." Clara crossed her arms. "You actually apologized for helping. Like I said, you did not need it." "No, I did not." She bit her lip, seeming to make a decision. "But thank you anyway." Dalton is usually harmless, but he has been drinking more lately, and today he was worse than usual. "He said you won money from him 3 months ago. Fair and square, like I said. But he has convinced himself I cheated, even though 6 other people were at that table and saw everything. Clara shrugged. Some men cannot accept that a woman can beat them at cards. Can you? Beat most men at cards, I mean. A genuine smile crossed her face and it transformed her completely. Every single one I have ever played against, Nathan laughed. Will you teach me? Why would I do that? Because then you would have someone worth playing against. He was pushing his luck and knew it, but something about Clara made him want to keep talking, keep her standing here smiling at him. And maybe I could buy you dinner as a thank you for the lesson. I told you I do not need your help or your charity. Not charity, payment for services rendered. You teach me cards, I feed you, seems like a fair trade. Clara shook her head, but she was still smiling. You are persistent, I will give you that. One of my few virtues. What are the others? Still working on finding them. Nathan grinned. So what do you say? Dinner and a card game. No strings, no expectations, just 2 people sharing a meal. 2 people, Clara repeated. Not a man and a woman on a date. Not unless you want it to be. She was quiet for a moment, her expression thoughtful. Nathan could almost see the war happening inside her, between the part that wanted to say yes and the part that had learned to say no to protect herself. Finally, she sighed. 1 dinner. 1 card game. And if you try anything, I will break your nose like I did to Jimmy Peterson. Fair enough. Tomorrow night, 6 o'clock, the restaurant next to the hotel. Clara pointed a finger at him. And you better bring your best game because I do not go easy on anyone. Would not expect you to. She walked away then, but this time she glanced back once over her shoulder, and Nathan saw something in her eyes that had not been there before. Curiosity, maybe, or interest, or just the tiniest crack in the armor she wore so well. Nathan floated through the rest of his day, barely paying attention to his work. The other ranch hands noticed, ribbing him about his distracted state, but he did not care. He had a dinner with Clara Owens tomorrow night, and the warnings everyone had given him seemed like distant echoes compared to the reality of her smile. That evening he cleaned his good shirt, polished his boots, and tried to remember everything his mother had taught him about manners before she passed. He was nervous in a way he had not been since he was a kid, and he kept second-guessing everything. What would they talk about? What if she changed her mind? What if he said something stupid and she walked out? The next day crawled by with agonizing slowness. Nathan mucked stalls, mended fences, and rode out to check on a sick calf, all while watching the sun inch across the sky. Finally, mercifully, 5 o'clock arrived and he headed back to the bunkhouse to change. You look like you are going to a funeral, Marcus observed, watching Nathan struggle with his collar. Relax, it is just dinner, with Clara Owens. Ah, Marcus grinned. In that case, you should be nervous. That woman can smell fear. You are not helping. Not trying to. But Marcus came over and fixed Nathan's collar with the expertise of someone who had daughters. There. Now you look almost respectable. Just remember, be yourself. Clara does not like pretense or games. Be honest, be respectful, and for God's sake, do not tell her what to do. Nathan arrived at the restaurant 5 minutes early, his palms sweating despite the cool evening air. The place was small but clean, with checkered tablecloths and oil lamps that cast a warm glow. Several other diners looked up when he entered, and he could feel their curiosity like a physical weight. Clara arrived exactly at 6 o'clock wearing a different dress than usual, this one a deep blue that brought out the green in her eyes. Her hair was still loose, tumbling over her shoulders in waves, and she carried herself with that same confidence that had first caught his attention. You came, Nathan said, standing up so quickly he nearly knocked over his chair. I said I would. Clara sat down across from him. I keep my word. I did not doubt it. The waitress. A middle-aged woman named Dorothy, who had been serving food in Pinos Altos for 20 years, came over with a knowing smile. "Good evening, Clara. And you must be Nathan, the new cowboy everyone is talking about. What can I get you too?" They ordered beef stew and cornbread, and Dorothy left with a wink that made Clara roll her eyes. "By tomorrow, the whole town will know we had dinner together. Does that bother you?" "Everything bothers me when it comes to this town's gossip." Clara leaned back in her chair. "But I stopped trying to control what people say about me years ago. They are going to talk regardless of what I do. Can I ask you something?" Nathan waited for her nod. "Why do you stay? If you hate the gossip so much, why not leave? Head to a bigger city where no one knows you." Clara was quiet for a moment, her fingers tracing the pattern on the tablecloth. "Because this is my home, even if it is not always kind to me. My parents are buried here. I know every street, every building, every person. And maybe part of me wants to prove that I can make it here despite everything." She looked up at him. "Does that make sense?" "Perfect sense. I have been drifting for 8 years, never staying anywhere long enough to call it home. Sometimes I wonder what that would feel like, to have roots somewhere." "It feels like being trapped and safe at the same time," Clara said. "Like you could leave any time you want, but you never quite do." The food arrived and they ate while talking about safer subjects. Nathan told her about growing up in Texas, about losing his parents to cholera when he was 16, about the different ranches where he had worked. Clara talked about books she had read, about the garden she kept behind her cabin, about a fox that visited her porch every morning looking for scraps. "You said you would teach me cards," Nathan reminded her after they finished eating. Clara produced a worn deck from the pocket of her skirt. 5-card draw. Most common game in these parts. Basic rules are simple, but playing well takes practice and skill." She dealt the cards with practiced ease, her fingers moving with the kind of grace that spoke of thousands of hands played. As she explained the rules and strategies, Nathan found himself watching her face more than the cards. She came alive when she talked about something she loved, her eyes bright, her whole body animated with enthusiasm. "You are not paying attention," Clara said. "Yes, I am." "Then what did I just say about reading tells?" Nathan grinned sheepishly. "Something about watching for patterns." Clara shook her head, but she was smiling. "Hopeless. Absolutely hopeless." They played several hands and Clara won every single one, often predicting exactly what cards Nathan held. She was patient when she taught him, pointing out his mistakes without making him feel stupid, and celebrating the few times he made good decisions. "You have a terrible poker face," Clara informed him after the 5th hand. "Every time you get a good card, your left eyebrow twitches." "It does not." "Does too." She demonstrated, and Nathan laughed because she was exactly right. "How do you notice things like that?" "Practice. And necessity." Clara gathered the cards and started shuffling again. "When you are a woman playing cards against men, you learn to watch everything. They underestimate you, which is an advantage, but they also get angry when they lose, which is dangerous. You have to know when to quit, when to push, when to fold even with a winning hand just to let them save face. That does not seem fair." "It is not, but it is survival." She dealt another hand. "You play the world as it is, not as you wish it would be." Nathan studied his cards, then looked at Clara. "What if you could change it? What if you did not have to play by their rules?" "That is a nice dream, but dreams do not pay for food or keep the roof over your head." Clara discarded 2 cards and drew 2 more. "I learned a long time ago that wanting things to be different does not make them so. But you still want it. That is why you fight so hard, why you refuse to let anyone tell you what to do." Clara put down her cards slowly. "You see too much, Nathan Ashford. Is that a bad thing? I have not decided yet." She met his eyes across the table. Most men look at me and see either a problem to solve or a prize to win. You look at me and see a person. That is either refreshing or terrifying. Why terrifying? Because it makes me want to trust you, and trust is how you get hurt. The honesty in her words hit Nathan like a punch to the chest. He put down his own cards and reached across the table, stopping just short of touching her hand. I will not hurt you, Clara. I promise you that. You cannot promise that. No one can. But she did not move her hand away. People always hurt each other, even when they do not mean to. Then I promise to try not to, and if I do, I promise to make it right. Clara looked at his hand hovering near hers. Then slowly, carefully, she closed the distance between them. Her fingers were warm and calloused from work, and the simple touch sent electricity up Nathan's arm. One step at a time, she said quietly. That is all I can offer you. One step, one day, one moment. No promises about tomorrow. I will take it, Nathan said. Whatever you can give, I will take it. They sat there for a moment, hands touching across a table covered in cards while the rest of the restaurant buzzed with conversation around them. Dorothy refilled their coffee with a smile that said she knew exactly what was happening. Outside, the sun had fully set, and stars were beginning to appear in the New Mexico sky. Finally, Clara pulled her hand back, but gently, regretfully. I should go. It is a long ride back to my cabin. Can I walk you to your horse? If you want. They left the restaurant together, Nathan dropping coins on the table to cover the meal and a generous tip. Outside, the street was quiet, most people already home for the night. Clara's horse, a paint mare with intelligent eyes, waited patiently at the hitching post. Thank you for dinner, Clara said as she untied the reins. And for not being what I expected. What did you expect? Someone trying to impress me. Someone with an agenda. She swung up into the saddle with easy grace. Instead, I got someone who actually listens, which is rarer than you might think. Can I see you again? Clara looked down at him, and in the lamplight she looked younger somehow, less guarded. I suppose that could be arranged. I usually come to town on Saturdays for supplies. Saturday then, maybe another dinner, or a ride if the weather holds. A ride might be nice. She gathered the reins. Good night, Nathan. Good night, Clara. He watched her ride off into the darkness, waiting until the sound of hoofbeats faded completely before heading back to the ranch. His heart felt too big for his chest, and he could not stop grinning despite trying to keep his expression neutral as he passed through town. The next few days passed in a blur of anticipation. Nathan worked harder than usual, trying to keep his mind occupied, but every quiet moment filled with thoughts of Clara. He replayed their conversation over and over, analyzing every word, every look, every small smile she had given him. Saturday arrived bright and clear, perfect weather for a ride. Nathan finished his morning chores in record time and headed into town, telling himself he was not rushing even though he definitely was. He spotted Clara's paint mare outside the general store and found Clara inside, haggling with Henderson over the price of flour. That is highway robbery, and you know it, Clara was saying. This same flour was 15 cents less last month. Prices go up, Miss Owens. Nothing I can do about it. Prices go up when merchants get greedy. But Clara paid the amount anyway, clearly needing the flour too much to walk away. Nathan waited until she finished her transaction before approaching. Morning. Clara turned, and her face brightened when she saw him. Morning. You are here early. Did not want to miss you. Nathan picked up the bag of flour before she could. Let me carry this out for you. I can manage. I know you can. But my mama raised me to carry heavy things for people when I can. Man or woman makes no difference, he added with a smile. Clara shook her head but let him carry the flour. Your mama raised you well. They loaded her supplies onto her horse, and Nathan went to get his own mount, a steady bay gelding named Rusty. When he returned, Clara was waiting with an expression he could not quite read. "Where should we ride?" Nathan asked. "There is a canyon about an hour north of here, beautiful this time of year and private enough that we would not run into anyone." Clara paused. "Unless you would rather stay closer to town. The canyon sounds perfect." They rode out together, leaving Pinos Altos behind as the landscape opened up around them. The New Mexico territory was harsh but beautiful, all red rocks and endless sky, dotted with piñon pines and juniper. The air smelled of sage and dust, and the sun warmed Nathan's back as they rode. Clara led the way, clearly familiar with the terrain. She sat a horse like she was born to it, moving with the animal's rhythm in a way that spoke of countless hours in the saddle. Nathan enjoyed watching her ride almost as much as he enjoyed the scenery. "How long have you lived in your cabin?" he asked when they slowed to navigate a rocky stretch. 8 years. Since I was 14. Clara guided her mare around a large boulder. "After my mother left, I stayed in town for a while, living in the back room of the church. Reverend Johnson and his wife were kind, but I felt like a burden. When old Mr. Patterson died and no one claimed his cabin, I asked if I could have it. The Reverend agreed, probably because he was tired of trying to find someone to take care of me. 14 is young to be living alone. I did not have much choice." Clara's voice was matter-of-fact, without self-pity. "Could not stay with the Reverend forever, and no one else wanted an angry girl who could not cook or sew worth a damn." "What made you angry?" "Everything. My father getting himself killed over a card game. My mother leaving without even saying goodbye. The way everyone in town looked at me with pity or disgust, like I was a problem to solve." Clara urged her horse forward. "I stayed angry for a long time, only started to let it go in the last few years." "What changed?" "I realized anger was just another kind of prison. It kept me trapped as much as anything else." She looked back at him over her shoulder. "That probably sounds strange." "No, it sounds honest." They reached the canyon just as Clara had promised, about an hour from town. It was a small canyon carved by centuries of water and wind, with steep red walls and a floor dotted with wildflowers. A thin stream ran through the center, barely more than a trickle this late in summer, but enough to support a few cottonwood trees that provided shade. They dismounted and let the horses drink while they sat on a flat rock overlooking the canyon floor. Clara pulled out the sandwiches she had packed, and they ate in comfortable silence, listening to birds call from the canyon walls. "Thank you for bringing me here," Nathan said. "It is beautiful. I come here when I need to think, or when town gets to be too much." Clara finished her sandwich and brushed crumbs from her skirt. "No one bothers me here. No one tells me what I should be doing or who I should be. It is just me and the quiet. I can leave if you want the quiet back." "No." Clara turned to look at him, really look at him with those penetrating eyes. "I do not want you to leave. That is what scares me." Nathan's heart started beating faster. "Why does that scare you?" "Because wanting people to stay means giving them the power to leave. Means caring what happens to them. Means opening yourself up to getting hurt again." She pulled her knees up to her chest, wrapping her arms around them. "I promised myself I would never do that again after my mother left, that I would never need anyone or let anyone close enough to hurt me. But then you showed up with your honest eyes and your apologies for helping me and your respect for my independence, and suddenly I find myself wanting to break my own rules." Clara rested her chin on her knees. "I barely know you, Nathan. But I cannot stop thinking about you, and that terrifies me." Nathan moved closer slowly, giving her time to move away if she wanted. When she did not, he sat beside her, their shoulders almost touching. "You terrify me too." "I do?" "Yes, because I have never felt this way about anyone before. I have been drifting for 8 years, and suddenly I find myself wanting to stop, wanting to stay in one place, wanting to know everything about you, to spend as much time with you as you will allow." Nathan turned to face her. "I was warned you were trouble, Clara, and maybe you are. But when I look at you, all I see is someone perfect, someone real and honest and brave, someone worth staying for." Clara's eyes were bright with unshed tears. "You do not know what you are saying. You do not know me, not really. All the things I have done, all the ways I am broken." "Then let me know you. Let me in bit by bit, day by day. I am not asking for forever, Clara. I am just asking for a chance." She was quiet for a long time, staring out at the canyon. Nathan waited, barely breathing, knowing this was a pivotal moment. Clara could shut him out right now, send him away and go back to her safe isolation. Or she could take a leap of faith, could trust him with even a small piece of her carefully guarded heart. "I cannot promise this will work," Clara finally said. "I cannot promise I will not panic and push you away. I cannot promise any kind of future. I am not asking for promises. And I cannot be what everyone expects. I will not become some proper lady who stays home and does needlework. I will not stop playing cards or speaking my mind or living my life on my own terms. I do not want you to change. I want you exactly as you are." Clara turned to him then, searching his face for any sign of insincerity. Whatever she saw there must have satisfied her, because she slowly nodded. Okay, we can try this. But slow, Nathan, we have to go slow. As slow as you need. And if I ask for space, you have to give it to me. I will. And you have to understand that I have never done this before, not really. I do not know how to be with someone, how to let someone care about me. We will figure it out together." Nathan reached out and gently took her hand. No expectations, no pressure, just two people seeing where this goes. Clara looked at their joined hands, then back at his face. "Why are you different, Nathan? Why do you make me want to try?" "Maybe because I see you. Not the rumors or the reputation, but you, Clara Owens, who reads books and feeds foxes and plays cards better than anyone. Who fights for her independence because it is all she has had to rely on. Who is scared and brave at the same time." Nathan squeezed her hand gently. "That is who I see. That is who I think is perfect." A tear slipped down Clara's cheek and she brushed it away impatiently. "I do not cry. Okay, I mean it. I have not cried in years. Whatever you say." Nathan smiled softly. Clara laughed through her tears. "You are impossible. I have been told that before." She leaned against him then, resting her head on his shoulder, and Nathan felt like his heart might burst. They sat there together as the sun climbed higher, warming the canyon around them. The horses grazed peacefully nearby. Birds sang from the cottonwood trees. And for the first time in longer than Nathan could remember, everything felt right. "Tell me about your parents," Clara said after a while. "What were they like?" Nathan talked about his mother's laugh, about how she sang while she cooked and always made sure to help anyone who needed it. He talked about his father's quiet strength, about how he taught Nathan to rope and ride and treat everyone with respect. He talked about losing them both within a week of each other, about the hollow feeling that had followed him for years. "They sound wonderful," Clara said softly. They would have liked you." "How do you know?" "Because my mother always said the best people are the ones who have been through hardship and came out kind anyway. And my father always said to respect people who work hard and do not ask for handouts." Nathan looked down at her. "That is you, Clara. You have been through more than most people could handle, but you are still kind when you choose to be. You work harder than anyone I have met, and you never ask for anything from anyone. I am not always kind. No one is always kind. But you are not cruel either. There is a difference." They stayed in the canyon until early afternoon, talking about everything and nothing. Clara told him about the books she loved, about her dream of seeing the ocean someday, about the garden she had coaxed into life behind her cabin. Nathan told her about his fear of settling down, about feeling like he did not belong anywhere, about the strange pull he felt toward Pinos Altos from the moment he arrived. When they finally rode back to town, something had shifted between them. They were still cautious, still learning each other, but the first wall had come down. Clara smiled more freely, laughed at his jokes, let their legs brush occasionally as they rode side by side. "Can I see you tomorrow?" Nathan asked when they reached the edge of town. "I usually work on the Wilson farm on Sundays," Clara said. "They need help with harvest and they pay fair wages." "What time do you finish?" "Around 5 usually." "How about I bring dinner to your cabin? Nothing fancy, just whatever Dorothy can pack up for us." Clara hesitated, and Nathan could see the war in her eyes again. Letting him into her home was another step, another vulnerability. But finally she nodded. "Okay, but do not expect much. The cabin is small and nothing special." "I am not coming to see the cabin, Clara. I am coming to see you." She blushed, actually blushed, and Nathan felt triumphant. "You are full of sweet words, Nathan Ashford. Only when they are true." They parted at the general store, and Nathan watched her load her supplies and ride off toward her cabin. He was still standing there grinning when Marcus rode up beside him. "Well, you have gone and done it now," Marcus said. "Done what?" "Fallen for Clara Owens. I can see it written all over your face." Marcus shook his head with a mixture of amusement and concern. "Hope you know what you are getting into." "Not even a little bit," Nathan admitted, "but I do not care. Sunday seemed to take forever to arrive." Nathan went through his usual routine of chores and work, but his mind was already at Clara's cabin, wondering what it looked like, what they would talk about, whether she was as nervous as he was. He left the ranch at 4:30 with a basket packed by Dorothy, who had winked at him and included extra biscuits. "For courting purposes," she said with a knowing smile. The whole town seemed to know about him and Clara now, and while some people looked disapproving, others seemed genuinely happy for them. Clara's cabin was exactly as she had described, small and simple but well maintained. It sat in a clearing about 3 miles from town, surrounded by pinon pines and overlooking a valley that stretched to the distant mountains. A garden grew behind the cabin, surprisingly lush with tomatoes, beans, and squash. A wooden bench sat on the small porch, and Nathan could picture Clara sitting there in the evenings, reading or watching the sunset. She must have heard him approach because she came out before he could dismount. She had changed from her work clothes into a faded green dress, and her hair was damp like she had just washed it. She looked nervous and beautiful, and Nathan felt his breath catch. "You came," Clara said. "Did you think I would not? Part of me hoped you would change your mind. That you would realize this is too complicated and I am too much work." She twisted her hands together. "But I am glad you did not." Nathan dismounted and lifted the basket. "Dorothy packed enough food for 6 people. I think she is trying to fatten us both up." "Dorothy has been trying to fatten me up since I was 14, Clara said with a small smile. "She thinks I am too thin." "You are perfect just as you are." Clara blushed again, and Nathan decided making her blush was his new favorite activity. She led him inside the cabin, which was indeed small but surprisingly comfortable. Books lined makeshift shelves along one wall. A handmade quilt covered the single bed in the corner. Dried herbs hung from the rafters, filling the air with a pleasant scent. A table and 2 chairs sat near the fireplace, and wildflowers in a jar served as a centerpiece. "It is not much," Clara said, "but it is mine. It is wonderful. You have made a real home here." They unpacked the food together and sat at the small table to eat. Through the open window, Nathan could hear evening birds singing and the rustle of wind through the pines. The setting sun painted everything golden, and Clara looked almost ethereal in the warm light. "You ever get lonely out here?" Nathan asked. "Sometimes. Especially in winter when the snow comes and I cannot get to town for weeks at a time." Clara broke off a piece of biscuit. "But I got used to being alone. Sometimes I even prefer it. And now I am starting to remember that alone and lonely are not the same thing." She met his eyes. "You are making me realize how much I have been missing, keeping everyone at a distance. You can still have your space and your independence. I am not trying to take that from you. I know. That is why I am letting you in." Clara reached across the table and took his hand. "I want you to understand something, Nathan. This is hard for me. Letting you come here, letting you see how I live, trusting you with pieces of myself I have never shown anyone. If I seem scared or if I pull back sometimes, it is not because of you. It is because of old wounds that have not quite healed. I understand. And Clara," he waited until she looked at him, "thank you for trusting me. I know it is not easy and I do not take it lightly." They finished dinner as the sun set completely, plunging the cabin into twilight. Clara lit oil lamps and the warm glow made everything feel intimate and close. They washed dishes together, moving around the small space like they had done it 100 times before. "Will you teach me more cards?" Nathan asked when they finished. "We could do that. Or—" Clara bit her lip. "I could show you something else I do out here, something I have never shown anyone." "I would like that." She led him outside to a small clearing behind the cabin where an easel stood with a canvas propped on it. Even in the dim light, Nathan could see it was a painting of the valley, capturing the colors and vastness with surprising skill. "You paint," Nathan said, genuinely amazed. "I taught myself from a book. It is probably not very good, but I enjoy it." Clara stood beside the easel, defensive and vulnerable at the same time. "Sometimes when words are not enough, colors work better. Clara, this is beautiful. You have real talent. You do not have to say that. I would not say it if I did not mean it." Nathan moved closer to examine the painting. "The way you captured the light, the depth of the valley, it is incredible. How long have you been painting?" 3 years. "I saved up money and bought supplies from a traveling merchant. Everyone thought I was crazy, spending hard-earned money on paint and canvas." Clara ran her finger along the edge of the easel. "But it makes me happy. That has to count for something. It counts for everything." Nathan turned to her. "You should show these to people. Maybe sell them." Who would buy paintings from a troublemaking woman who lives alone in a cabin? People with eyes and good taste. Nathan was serious now. "Clara, you have a gift. You should not hide it away out here." "I will think about it," she said, though he could tell she did not believe him. They stayed outside for a while longer, standing close together under the emerging stars. The temperature dropped as it always did in the high desert, and Clara shivered. Without thinking, Nathan put his arm around her shoulders, and after a moment's hesitation, she leaned into him. "This is nice," Clara said softly. "I could get used to this. I hope you do." She looked up at him, and in the starlight her eyes were dark and luminous. "Nathan, I need to tell you something. Okay, I am scared, terrified actually, of us, of what might happen. But I also feel something I have not felt in a very long time." She took a breath. "I feel hopeful, like maybe things could be different, like maybe I do not have to be alone forever." Nathan tightened his arm around her. "You do not have to be alone anymore, not if you do not want to be." "I do not want to be," Clara whispered. "Not anymore." They stood there under the stars, and Nathan knew this was a turning point. Clara was letting him in, truly letting him in, and he felt the weight of that trust settle over him like a sacred responsibility. He would do everything in his power to prove worthy of it, to never give her reason to regret taking this chance. When Nathan finally rode back to the ranch that night, his heart was so full it ached. He had kissed Clara before leaving, just a soft brush of lips that tasted of hope and possibility. She had smiled against his mouth, and that smile stayed with him the entire ride back. The next few weeks fell into a pattern. Nathan worked at the ranch during the week, and every evening he could, he rode into town to see Clara. Sometimes they had dinner at the restaurant. Sometimes he brought food to her cabin. Sometimes they just sat together on her porch, talking until the stars came out. Clara slowly opened up more, telling him about her childhood before everything fell apart, about the pain of her mother's abandonment, about the years of learning to survive on her own. Nathan listened to every word, holding her when she needed comfort, giving her space when she needed to be strong on her own. In turn, Nathan told her things he had never told anyone. About the guilt he felt for surviving when his parents died. About the fear that he was fundamentally unable to settle down, that the restlessness in his soul would always drive him away from anything good. About his dreams of someday having a family, a home, a place where he truly belonged. "You belong here," Clara told him one night when they sat under the stars behind her cabin, "in Pinos Altos, with me. Do I, if you want to." She turned to face him. "I know we have only known each other for a few weeks, but Nathan, I cannot imagine my life without you anymore. You have become part of my days, part of my thoughts, part of everything." Nathan pulled her close and kissed her properly, deeply, pouring all his feelings into it. When they broke apart, both breathing hard, Clara smiled with a joy he had never seen on her face before. "I love you," Nathan said, the words coming out before he could stop them. "I know it is too soon, and I know you might not feel the same way, but I need you to know. I love you, Clara Owens. I love your strength and your honesty and your talent and your courage. I love the way you refuse to be anything but yourself. I love everything about you." Tears spilled down Clara's cheeks, but she was smiling through them. "It is not too soon. It is perfect timing because I love you too, Nathan Ashford. I tried not to. I tried to protect myself. But I fell in love with you anyway, and I do not regret it for a second." They held each other under the stars, and Nathan felt like his whole life had been leading to this moment. All the drifting, all the searching, it had brought him here to Clara, to this dusty New Mexico town, to this perfect woman who had been warned away from but captured his heart the moment he saw her. As summer turned to fall, their relationship deepened. Nathan met the few friends Clara had, people who saw past the reputation and valued her for who she was. Clara started coming to the ranch occasionally, helping with the horses and impressing the other cowboys with her riding skills. The warnings about her being trouble faded as people saw how happy they made each other. There were challenges, of course. Clara still had moments of panic when she felt too close, too vulnerable. She would pull away for a day or two, needing space to remember who she was outside of their relationship. Nathan learned to give her that space without taking it personally, to understand that her independence was not a rejection of him, but a necessary part of who she was. And Nathan had his own struggles, fighting against the ingrained restlessness that made him want to move on when things got too comfortable. But every time he thought about leaving, he would see Clara's smile or hear her laugh, and he knew he was exactly where he was meant to be. In late October, Nathan was offered a foreman position at the Double R Ranch, a promotion that came with better pay and a small house on the property. He accepted immediately, already imagining Clara's face when he told her. He rode to her cabin that evening with his heart pounding. This was it, the moment that would determine their future. He found her working in her garden, harvesting the last of the vegetables before the first frost. "Clara, I need to ask you something," Nathan said after greeting her with a kiss. "That sounds serious." Clara set down her basket and brushed dirt from her hands. "The ranch offered me a foreman position, better pay, more responsibility, and a house." Nathan took her hands in his. "But I do not want to live in that house alone. Clara, I want you there with me. I want to wake up next to you every morning and fall asleep beside you every night. I want to share my life with you completely." Clara's eyes widened. "Are you asking me to marry you?" "Yes, if you will have me." Nathan squeezed her hands. "I know marriage might feel like giving up your independence, but it does not have to be that way. We can make our own rules, build our own kind of life together. You can keep painting, keep playing cards, keep being exactly who you are. I just want to be by your side while you do it." Clara was quiet for a long moment, and Nathan's heart sank. He had pushed too hard, asked for too much too soon. But then she smiled, that brilliant smile that transformed her entire face. "Yes," Clara said. "Yes, I will marry you, Nathan Ashford, because you are right. Marriage does not have to mean losing myself. With you, it means finding more of myself than I ever knew existed." Nathan let out a whoop of joy and spun her around, both of them laughing. When he set her down, he kissed her thoroughly, pouring all his love and excitement into it. "When?" Clara asked when they finally broke apart. "When should we do this?" "Whenever you want. Tomorrow, next month, next year. I am just happy you said yes." "Soon," Clara decided. "I do not want a big fancy wedding with half the town staring at us. Just something simple with the people who matter." They decided on a date 3 weeks away. Enough time to make basic arrangements, but not so much that Clara could overthink and panic. Nathan broke the news to the ranch hands, who congratulated him with a mixture of amazement and respect. Marcus clapped him on the back and said, "You actually did it. You got Clara Owens to say yes. Never thought I would see the day." The town reacted with similar surprise. Some people were genuinely happy for them. Others remained skeptical, certain the marriage would not last a month. But Nathan and Clara did not care about the skeptics. They were too busy planning their future together. Clara started packing up her cabin, sorting through her possessions, and deciding what to bring to their new home. Nathan helped when she let him, learning which books were her favorites, which paintings meant the most to her, which small objects held memories worth keeping. "I have lived here for 8 years, Clara said one evening as they wrapped her paintings in cloth for transport. "This place saved me in a lot of ways, gave me shelter when I had none, privacy when everyone wanted to control me. Leaving it feels strange. We can keep it if you want. Come back whenever you need space." Clara shook her head. "No, I am ready to move forward. Ready to start this new chapter with you." She looked around the cabin. "But I will always be grateful for what this place gave me." The night before their wedding, Nathan lay awake in the bunkhouse, too excited to sleep. Tomorrow, Clara would become his wife. Tomorrow, they would start building a life together. It still felt like a dream, like something that happened to other people but never to drifting cowboys with no roots. The wedding took place on a crisp November afternoon at the small church in Pinos Altos. Only a dozen people attended, including Marcus, Dorothy, the Reverend and his wife, Sheriff Daniels, and a few of Clara's friends. Clara wore a simple dress of ivory cotton that she had sewn herself, with wildflowers in her hair. She looked beautiful and nervous and determined all at once. Nathan wore his best clothes, his hair slicked back, his hands trembling slightly as Clara walked down the short aisle toward him. When she reached his side, she gave him a smile that steadied him completely. The ceremony was brief and heartfelt. They exchanged vows they had written themselves, promising to love and respect each other, to give space when needed and closeness when wanted, to build a life based on honesty and partnership. When the Reverend pronounced them husband and wife, Nathan kissed Clara with all the love in his heart, and she kissed him back with equal passion. The small gathering cheered, and Dorothy cried happy tears. They celebrated with a simple meal at the restaurant, where Dorothy had prepared a special feast. People made toasts, telling embarrassing stories and offering advice. Clara laughed more than Nathan had ever seen her laugh, her face glowing with happiness. "I cannot believe this is real," Clara whispered to Nathan during dinner. "Cannot believe I am married, that I have a husband, that someone actually wants to spend their life with me." "Believe it," Nathan said, bringing her hand to his lips, "because I am not going anywhere." "You are stuck with me now, Mrs. Ashford." "Mrs. Ashford," Clara repeated, testing out the name. "I like how that sounds." They spent their first night as a married couple in the small house that came with Nathan's new position. It was larger than Clara's cabin, with 2 rooms and glass windows and a real stove. They had spent the previous week furnishing it together, hanging Clara's paintings on the walls and filling shelves with her books. "Our home," Clara said, standing in the middle of the front room and slowly turning to take it all in. "We have a real home, Nathan. We do." Nathan came up behind her and wrapped his arms around her waist. "And we are going to fill it with love and laughter and maybe eventually with children, if you want them." Clara turned in his arms. "I do want them. Someday. I want to create the family I never had, the kind of home where children feel safe and loved and free to be themselves." "We will do that," Nathan promised. "Together." That night, they consummated their marriage with tenderness and passion, exploring each other with care and wonder. Afterward, they lay tangled together in their bed, talking quietly about their hopes and dreams for the future. "Thank you," Clara said, her head resting on Nathan's chest, "for not listening to the warnings, for seeing me instead of my reputation, for giving me a reason to trust again. Thank you for taking a chance on me, for letting me in. For loving me even though I am just a cowboy with more heart than sense." Clara laughed softly. "You have plenty of sense. And you are not just a cowboy. You are my husband, my partner, my best friend. You are everything I never knew I needed." They fell asleep wrapped in each other's arms, and Nathan slept better than he had in years. He woke with the dawn to find Clara still sleeping beside him, her hair spread across the pillow like spilled copper. He watched her sleep, marveling at how peaceful she looked, how different from the guarded woman he had met just a few months ago. Their married life settled into a comfortable rhythm. Nathan worked at the ranch, managing the other hands and overseeing operations. Clara took on various jobs in town, from bookkeeping to helping at the school to selling her paintings to the occasional traveler who recognized their beauty. She still played cards at the saloon once a week, and Nathan would sometimes watch, proud of her skill and not caring what anyone thought about his wife gambling. They had disagreements, of course. Clara could be stubborn and defensive when she felt controlled. Nathan could be overprotective, trying to shield her from criticism or hardship. But they learned to talk through their problems, to compromise and communicate and choose their battles wisely. Winter came, blanketing Pinos Altos in snow and forcing them to spend more time inside. They did not mind. Nathan taught Clara to cook better, though she would never be a natural in the kitchen. Clara taught Nathan to read more than basic signs, opening up worlds of literature he had never explored. They played cards for hours, with Clara winning most games but Nathan slowly improving. They made love often, learning each other's bodies with increasing familiarity and delight. By the time spring arrived, melting the snow and coaxing green from the brown earth, Clara had something to tell Nathan. She waited until they were sitting on their porch one evening, watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of orange and pink. "Nathan, I am pregnant," Clara said, her voice soft but steady. Nathan nearly dropped his coffee cup. You are you sure? The doctor confirmed it yesterday. About 3 months along. Clara looked at him with a mixture of joy and fear. We are going to have a baby. Nathan set down his cup and pulled Clara into his arms, holding her tight. A baby, we are going to be parents. Are you happy? Clara asked against his shoulder. Happy. Clara, I am beyond happy. I am terrified and excited and so full of love I might burst. Nathan pulled back to look at her face. How are you feeling? Are you scared? Terrified, Clara admitted. I never had a good example of what a mother should be. What if I mess this up? What if I am not good enough? You will be an amazing mother. You are strong and honest and so full of love, even if you try to hide it sometimes. Nathan placed his hand on her still flat stomach. Our child is lucky to have you. Clara's eyes filled with tears. I hope you are right. I hope I can give our baby everything I never had. We will do it together. That is what partners do. The pregnancy progressed smoothly, though Clara hated feeling weak or dependent. Nathan learned to help without hovering, to support without smothering. Clara continued working for as long as she could, stubbornly refusing to slow down until her swelling belly made it impossible to hide. The townspeople who had once warned Nathan away from Clara now congratulated them both, excited about the coming baby. Dorothy knitted tiny clothes and gave Clara endless advice. The Reverend's wife organized a small celebration where women brought gifts and shared their own pregnancy stories. Clara tolerated it all with more grace than Nathan expected, clearly touched by the support even if she would not admit it. In early October, exactly 1 year after Nathan had proposed, Clara went into labor. It was a long, difficult birth that left Nathan pacing outside their bedroom while Dorothy and the doctor attended to his wife. He could hear Clara's cries of pain, and it nearly killed him not being able to help. Finally, after hours that felt like days, he heard a different cry. A baby's cry, strong and healthy and full of life. Dorothy appeared in the doorway with tears on her face and a smile that stretched ear to ear. You have a son, she said. A beautiful, healthy son. And Clara is fine, just exhausted. Nathan rushed past her into the bedroom. Clara lay propped against pillows, her hair damp with sweat, her face pale but radiant. In her arms was a tiny bundle, and when Nathan approached, she pulled back the blanket to reveal their son. He was perfect. Tiny and red-faced, with a shock of dark hair and eyes that squinted against the lamplight. Nathan reached out with a trembling finger and touched his son's impossibly small hand. The baby's fingers curled around Nathan's, gripping tight, and Nathan felt his eyes fill with tears. He is perfect, Nathan whispered. Clara, he is absolutely perfect. We made this, Clara said, wonder in her voice. We created this tiny person. I still cannot quite believe it. What should we name him? They had discussed names throughout the pregnancy but never settled on anything. Now, looking at their son, Clara said, Thomas, after your father, I want him to carry on that legacy of kindness and strength. Thomas Ashford, Nathan said, testing it out. I love it. My father would be honored. They spent the next hour just marveling at their son, counting his fingers and toes, watching him yawn and stretch and make little noises. Dorothy finally shooed Nathan out so Clara could rest, but he returned as soon as she woke, unable to stay away from his new family. The first few weeks with Thomas were exhausting and magical in equal measure. Clara struggled with nursing at first, frustrated by her body's learning curve. Nathan learned to change diapers and swaddle the baby and walk the floor at 3 in the morning when Thomas would not sleep. They were both overwhelmed and sleep-deprived, but also happier than either had ever been. I cannot believe how much I love him, Clara said one night when Thomas finally slept. I did not know it was possible to love someone this much, this instantly. I know what you mean. Nathan looked at his sleeping son. "I would do anything for him, die for him without hesitation. Let us try to live for him instead," Clara said with a tired smile. "That seems more useful." As Thomas grew from a newborn to an infant to a curious toddler, Nathan and Clara grew as parents and partners. They learned to balance their needs with Thomas's demands, to support each other through the hard moments, to celebrate every milestone together. Clara discovered she was a patient, loving mother, her fierce protectiveness channeled into keeping their son safe and happy. Nathan was a devoted father who played endlessly with Thomas and made sure he always felt loved and secure. When Thomas was 2 years old, Clara became pregnant again. This time she was less scared, more confident in her abilities as a mother. Their daughter was born in the spring, a tiny girl with Clara's red hair and Nathan's smile. They named her Rose after the wildflowers Clara loved so much. Life settled into a beautiful chaos of children and work and love. Nathan continued as foreman, becoming an indispensable part of the ranch. Clara started teaching at the school a few days a week, sharing her love of books with the next generation. Her paintings sold regularly now, bringing in extra income and earning her respect as an artist. The house that had seemed so spacious for two became comfortably crowded with four. Thomas's toys littered the floor. Rose's cries filled the night. Laughter and love echoed in every room. It was everything neither Nathan nor Clara had dared to dream of when they first met. On their 5th wedding anniversary, they arranged for Dorothy to watch the children and rode out to the canyon where they had first opened their hearts to each other. It looked exactly the same, unchanged by the years that had transformed their lives so completely. 5 years, Clara said, sitting on the same rock where she had told Nathan she was scared to let him in. 5 years since you ignored all the warnings and decided I was perfect. You are perfect, Nathan said, sitting beside her. Even more now than then, if that is possible. I have stretch marks and gray hairs, and I snap at you when I am tired. And I love every single thing about you. Nathan took her hand. Clara, these 5 years have been the best of my life. You gave me a home, a family, a purpose. You gave me everything I was searching for without knowing it. You gave me the same. You taught me I could be strong and still accept help, that I could be independent and still be part of a partnership, that being loved does not mean being controlled. Clara leaned her head on his shoulder. You saved me, Nathan, in all the ways that matter. We saved each other. They sat in comfortable silence, watching the sun set over the canyon just like they had done 5 years ago. So much had changed, but the foundation remained the same. Two people who took a chance on each other, who chose love over fear, who built something beautiful from nothing but hope and determination. You ever regret it? Clara asked. Taking a chance on the troublemaker everyone warned you about, Nathan laughed. Not for a single second. Best decision I ever made was not listening to those warnings. And do you still think I am perfect? More than ever. Nathan kissed the top of her head. You are perfectly imperfect, perfectly yourself and perfectly mine. What more could I ask for? Clara smiled and turned to kiss him properly. I love you, Nathan Ashford. Thank you for seeing me when no one else did. Thank you for loving me when I did not know how to be loved. Thank you for giving me this life. Thank you for letting me in. Thank you for trusting me. Thank you for being brave enough to take this journey with me. Nathan cupped her face in his hands. I love you, Clara Ashford. Today, tomorrow, and forever. As they rode back home in the twilight, Nathan thought about the man he had been 5 years ago. Drifting, rootless, searching for something he could not name. Then Clara had walked into his life, all fire and defiance and hidden vulnerability, and everything changed. He found his home, his purpose, his reason for staying. The warnings had been right in a way. Clara was trouble. but she was also perfect, and those two things were not contradictory. They were just different sides of the same remarkable woman who had stolen his heart the moment he saw her. They reached their house as full darkness fell. Through the window, they could see Dorothy reading to Thomas and rocking Rose. It was a picture of domestic peace, of the family they had created together. "Ready to go back to reality?" Clara asked, nodding toward the house. "Always, as long as you are by my side." They walked inside together, and their children's faces lit up at their return. Thomas ran to hug his father's legs while Clara scooped Rose into her arms. Dorothy left with a smile and well wishes, and the four of them were alone. Nathan watched Clara settle Rose for bed while singing softly, watched Thomas build towers with wooden blocks, and felt a contentment so deep it was almost painful. This was everything. This noisy, chaotic, beautiful life with the woman who had been trouble and perfect from the very first moment. Years passed in a blur of happiness and challenges. Thomas grew into a thoughtful boy who loved horses like his father and books like his mother. Rose became a spirited girl with a talent for painting that rivaled Clara's. When Thomas was 7 and Rose was 5, Clara gave birth to twin boys, Samuel and James, who kept the entire household in constant motion. Nathan and Clara weathered every storm together. Hard winters when money was tight and the cold seemed endless. Hot summers when drought threatened the ranch. Illnesses that scared them but ultimately passed. Arguments that flared hot but always ended in understanding. Through it all, their love remained constant, the foundation upon which everything else was built. By the time their 10th anniversary arrived, Nathan was 34 and Clara was 32. They had 4 healthy children, a comfortable home, respect in the community, and a love that had only deepened with time and trials. 10 years, Clara said on their anniversary morning, lying in bed beside Nathan while the children still slept. A decade of marriage, of partnership, of love. "Best decade of my life," Nathan said, pulling her close. "And I am greedy enough to want 10 more, 20 more, as many as we get. I used to think I would always be alone, that I was too damaged, too difficult, too much trouble for anyone to love." Clara traced patterns on Nathan's chest. "But you proved me wrong in the best possible way. You were never too much. You were always exactly right." Nathan kissed her forehead. "The moment I saw you, I knew. Everyone warned me away, but I took one look and knew you were perfect. Even now, with 4 children, a house that is always messy, and a wife who is constantly exhausted, especially now. Because this life we built, this family we created, this love we share, it is all real. It is messy and imperfect and absolutely perfect at the same time." Before Clara could respond, they heard small feet pattering down the hallway. Thomas appeared in the doorway, hair sticking up in all directions. "Papa, Mama, the twins are awake and Rose says it is your anniversary and can we make you breakfast?" Nathan and Clara looked at each other and laughed. "Sure, let us see what you come up with," Clara said. They spent the morning eating slightly burned pancakes and accepting handmade cards covered in childish drawings. The children had conspired with Dorothy to plan a small celebration that afternoon, and watching their excitement was better than any grand gesture could have been. That evening, after the children were finally asleep, Nathan and Clara sat on their porch under the stars. Pinos Altos was quiet around them, peaceful in the darkness. Clara's head rested on Nathan's shoulder and his arm was wrapped around her waist. "Do you remember that first night I came to your cabin for dinner?" Nathan asked. "How nervous we both were. I remember thinking you might be the one to finally break through all my walls. I was terrified of that." Clara laughed softly. "Turns out I was right to be terrified, but in the best way possible. I remember being amazed that you let me in at all, that you trusted me enough to show me your paintings, to let me into your private space. You earned that trust every single day since then." Clara turned to look at him. "You never tried to change me or control me. You loved me exactly as I was while helping me grow into someone even better. That is the greatest gift you could have given me. You did the same for me. You taught me what home really means, not a place but a person, people, a family." Nathan gestured to the house behind them. "This is my home because you are here, because our children are here, because the love we share fills every corner of this place." They sat in comfortable silence, listening to the night sounds of the New Mexico territory. Somewhere an owl hooted. A gentle breeze rustled the leaves. Inside, one of the twins cried out briefly in his sleep before settling again. "I love our life," Clara said simply. "Every chaotic, exhausting, beautiful moment of it. I love you, Nathan, more than I thought it was possible to love anyone." "I love you too, Clara, my perfect trouble, my greatest adventure, my home." Years continued to pass, bringing new joys and challenges. Thomas grew into a fine young man who eventually took a job at the ranch alongside his father. Rose discovered a talent for teaching and began helping at the school with Clara. The twins, Samuel and James, were inseparable troublemakers who kept everyone on their toes with their pranks and energy. Nathan and Clara grew older together gracefully. Silver streaked their hair. Lines appeared around their eyes from years of laughter. Their bodies bore the marks of time and hard work, but their love never diminished. If anything, it grew stronger, tempered by years of choosing each other every single day. By the time they celebrated their 20th anniversary, their house was often empty during the day as the children pursued their own interests and dreams. Thomas was courting a sweet girl from a neighboring ranch. Rose was saving money to attend a teaching college in Santa Fe. The twins were 14 and already showing signs of their father's height and their mother's determination. "An empty nest is coming," Clara said, watching Thomas ride off toward town one evening. "Soon it will be just us again, like it was at the beginning. Are you sad about that?" Nathan asked. "A little, but also excited." Clara smiled at him. "I love our children more than life itself, but I am looking forward to having time alone with my husband again, to focusing on us without always being interrupted by someone needing something. We can travel like you always wanted. See the ocean, visit cities, have adventures. Or we can stay right here and enjoy the peace and quiet." Clara took his hand. "As long as I am with you, I do not care where we are." True to their hopes, the next few years brought a new phase of life. Thomas married his sweetheart and started building a life of his own. Rose went off to college, writing long letters home about her studies and dreams. The twins apprenticed with the blacksmith in town, learning a trade while still living at home. Nathan and Clara found themselves alone together more often, rediscovering each other without the constant demands of young children. They took long rides through the countryside, spent lazy Sundays reading on the porch, made love in the middle of the day simply because they could. It was a different kind of happiness than the early days of their marriage, deeper and more settled, but no less real. On their 25th anniversary, the whole family gathered for a celebration. Thomas and his wife brought their baby daughter, making Nathan and Clara grandparents for the first time. Rose came home from college full of stories and plans. The twins cooked dinner with surprising skill, having learned from their mother and Dorothy over the years. After the meal, when the children were playing with the baby and catching up with each other, Nathan and Clara slipped away to their room. Nathan retrieved a small box from his dresser drawer and handed it to Clara. "What is this?" she asked. "Open it and see." Inside was a delicate necklace with a pendant shaped like a wildflower, expertly crafted from silver and gold. Clara gasped when she saw it. "Nathan, it is beautiful. Where did you get this?" "I commissioned it from a jeweler in Santa Fe." "The flower is a wild rose, like the ones you used to pick in the canyon where we first fell in love." Nathan fastened it around her neck. "I wanted you to have something beautiful, something that represents our love and all the wild, untamed beauty you bring to my life." Clara's eyes filled with tears. 25 years and you still find ways to surprise me, to make me feel cherished and loved. That is because I do cherish and love you, more with every passing year." Nathan cupped her face. "You are still the most beautiful woman I have ever seen. Still the strongest, bravest, most remarkable person I know. Still perfect in every way that matters." "I love you," Clara whispered. "Thank you for never giving up on us, for choosing me every single day for 25 years. Easiest choice I ever made." They kissed then, a kiss full of 25 years of love and passion and partnership. When they finally broke apart, they could hear their children laughing in the other room, could hear their granddaughter babbling happily. It was the sound of family, of legacy, of love multiplying and spreading beyond just the two of them. As Nathan and Clara aged, they watched their children build their own lives with pride and joy. Rose married a fellow teacher and moved to Albuquerque, where she opened a small school for girls. The twins both found wives and settled in Pinos Altos, working together to open their own blacksmith shop. Thomas took over as ranch foreman when Nathan finally retired at 60, and the tradition continued. Grandchildren arrived regularly, filling Nathan and Clara's later years with the chaos and joy of young ones again. But this time, they could spoil the children and send them home when they got tired. It was, they both agreed, the perfect arrangement. On their 30th anniversary, Nathan was 54 and Clara was 52. They were both still healthy and active, though Nathan's knees complained on cold mornings and Clara needed spectacles to read. They had lived in Pinos Altos for over 3 decades now, longer than either had lived anywhere else. The town had grown from a small mining settlement to a thriving community, and Nathan and Clara were respected elders, their love story legendary among the younger generation. 30 years, Nathan said, standing with Clara in the canyon where their story began. They tried to visit every anniversary, weather permitting. 3 decades of marriage, of love, of building a life together. "You remember how scared I was that first time we came here?" Clara asked. "How I told you that wanting you to stay terrified me. I remember. And I remember promising to try not to hurt you, to make things right if I did. You kept that promise." Clara turned to face him, her honey-colored eyes still as striking as the first day he saw her. "In 30 years of marriage, you have never deliberately hurt me, never been cruel or dismissive or controlling. You have been my partner in the truest sense of the word. You made it easy. You never played games or tested me. You told me what you needed, and I did my best to provide it while respecting your independence." Nathan took both her hands. "Clara, these 30 years with you have been the greatest gift of my life. You are the greatest gift of my life." Tears slipped down Clara's cheeks. "I used to think I was too broken for love, too damaged from my childhood, too scarred from years of taking care of myself. But you showed me that broken things can heal, that scars tell stories of survival, that strength and vulnerability are not opposites but partners. You were never broken. You were just waiting for someone who could see your value, your beauty, your incredible worth." Nathan wiped her tears gently. "I am so grateful I was that person, that I got to be the one to love you." They held each other in the canyon, 2 people who had taken a chance on love when everyone said it would not work. 2 people who built something extraordinary from nothing but hope and determination, and a willingness to be vulnerable with each other. The ride back to town was quiet but comfortable. They did not need words anymore. After 30 years, they could communicate in glances and touches and the simple presence of each other. It was a language they had developed over decades, unique to just them. As they approached their home, they could see lights burning in the windows. Their children and grandchildren had gathered for a surprise party, unable to let the milestone pass without celebration. Clara laughed when she saw the decorations, and Nathan grinned at his family's conspiring. The party was loud and chaotic and perfect. Children ran everywhere while adults talked and laughed. Food covered every surface. Someone brought a fiddle and played music while couples danced in the front room. Nathan and Clara were the center of attention, fielding questions about their secret to a lasting marriage. Respect, Clara said when asked. Respect for each other as individuals, not just as husband and wife. Communication, Nathan added. Being honest about needs and feelings, even when it is hard. Choosing each other every day, they said together, smiling at the synchronicity. As the evening wore on and grandchildren fell asleep in various corners, Thomas stood up and called for everyone's attention. I want to propose a toast to my parents. 30 years ago, my father ignored every warning about my mother and decided she was perfect. Everyone said it would not last, that they were too different, that she was too much trouble. Thomas grinned at his mother, who rolled her eyes good-naturedly. But my father saw what everyone else missed. He saw strength and intelligence and fierce independence. He saw someone worth fighting for, worth staying for. And my mother, who had every reason to protect her heart, chose to be brave, to trust, to love. Rose stood up beside her brother. They taught us what real partnership looks like. Not one person controlling the other, but two people supporting each other's growth. They showed us that love is not about losing yourself in someone else, but about becoming more fully yourself because of them. The twins stood together. They taught us that family is not about perfection, but about showing up even when things are hard, about loving each other through disagreements and challenges, about building something that lasts. Thomas raised his glass. To Nathan and Clara Ashford. Thank you for showing us what love really means. Thank you for creating a family built on respect and honesty and genuine affection. Thank you for 30 years of being an example we can all aspire to. To Nathan and Clara, everyone chorused, raising their glasses. Nathan and Clara stood together, tears streaming down both their faces, overwhelmed by the love surrounding them. This was their legacy, Nathan realized, not just the children they had raised or the grandchildren who bore their features, but the love they had modeled, the example they had set, the proof that two imperfect people could build something beautiful together. More years passed, bringing the inevitable changes that come with age. Nathan developed arthritis that made riding difficult. Clara's eyesight weakened until she could no longer see well enough to paint. They slowed down, spending more time at home and less traveling. But their love never diminished, never wavered, never became anything less than the foundation of their existence. On their 35th anniversary, they celebrated quietly at home with just their children and grandchildren. Nathan was 59 now, Clara 57. They moved more slowly, tired more easily, but their minds remained sharp and their love remained strong. 35 years, Clara said that night after everyone had left. They sat on their porch in the darkness, wrapped in blankets against the cool night air. More than half our lives spent together. The better half, Nathan said. Everything before you was just preparation. My real life started the day I rode into Pinos Altos and saw you standing outside the general store. I remember that day so clearly, seeing you for the first time and feeling something shift inside me, like recognizing someone I had been waiting for without knowing it. Clara leaned her head on his shoulder. Do you ever wonder how different our lives would be if you had listened to those warnings? Never, because a life without you is no life at all. Nathan kissed the top of her head. You are my everything, Clara. You always have been. And you are mine. My unexpected gift, my greatest adventure, my home. Clara was quiet for a moment. Nathan, I need to tell you something. What is it? I saw the doctor last week. There is something wrong with my heart. He says I might have a few years, might have less. There is no way to know for certain. Nathan felt his own heart stop. Clara, no, there has to be something they can do, some treatment or medicine or something. There is not. It is just age and hard living catching up with me. Clara squeezed his hand. I am not scared, Nathan. I have had a beautiful life, far better than I ever dreamed possible. I have been loved completely by a good man. I have raised children and seen grandchildren. I have painted and read and experienced joy I never thought would be mine. But I am not ready to lose you. Nathan's voice broke. I cannot imagine this life without you in it. You will be fine. You are strong, and our children will take care of you. Clara turned to face him. Promise me something. Promise me you will keep living after I am gone. Keep visiting this porch. Keep telling our story. Keep the love we built alive. I promise, Nathan whispered. But Clara, please fight this. Do not leave me yet. I will fight as long as I can. But when my time comes, I need you to let me go with grace. No regrets, no what-ifs. Just gratitude for the years we had. Nathan pulled her close and held her tight, as if he could keep death away through sheer force of will. They stayed like that for a long time, two people who had loved each other for 35 years, facing the reality that their time was running out. The next 2 years were bittersweet. Clara's condition slowly worsened, though she remained active as long as she could. The family rallied around them, visiting often, creating as many happy memories as possible. Nathan devoted himself to caring for Clara, doing everything he could to make her comfortable and happy. They celebrated their 36th and 37th anniversaries with quiet joy, each one more precious for knowing it might be their last. Clara made Nathan promise to keep living, to find joy in their children and grandchildren, to not let grief consume him after she was gone. I have had a beautiful life, Clara told him on what would be their final anniversary together. She was weak now, spending most of her days in bed, but her mind remained clear. You gave me everything I never knew I wanted. A home, a family, love that never wavered or failed. I have been so blessed, Nathan. I am the one who was blessed, Nathan said, holding her hand. You transformed my life, gave it meaning and purpose. You taught me what love really is. You made me better than I ever could have been on my own. We made each other better. That is what real love does. Clara's breathing was labored now, each breath an effort. Nathan, I am tired, so very tired, but I am not afraid. How could I be knowing I have been loved like this? I love you, Clara, with everything I am, everything I ever was, everything I ever will be. I love you, and I love you, forever and always. Clara smiled, and in that smile Nathan saw the young woman he had first met 37 years ago, standing outside the general store with fire in her eyes and defiance in every line of her body. Thank you for ignoring the warnings. Thank you for seeing me. Thank you for loving me exactly as I was. You were perfect, Nathan whispered. You are perfect. Clara closed her eyes then, still smiling, and her breathing slowly, gradually stilled. Nathan held her hand as she slipped away, keeping his promise to let her go with grace. But even as he felt his heart shatter, he was grateful. Grateful for every moment they had shared, every laugh and tear and quiet evening together. Grateful that he had taken a chance on love when everyone warned him away. Clara Ashford died peacefully in her sleep at age 57, surrounded by the love she had feared but ultimately embraced. Her funeral was attended by the entire town of Pinos Altos and people from miles around, all of them there to honor a woman who had defied expectations and built an extraordinary life. Nathan grieved deeply, but kept his promise. He continued living, finding joy in his children and grandchildren, telling their love story to anyone who would listen. He stayed in their home, sitting on the porch each evening and remembering the countless nights he and Clara had spent there together. On what would have been their 40th anniversary, Nathan rode out to the canyon alone. He was 62 now, gray-haired and weathered, carrying his grief like a familiar weight. But he also carried the joy of having loved and been loved so completely. He stood in the same spot where Clara had first told him she loved him, where they had returned every anniversary for decades. 40 years, he said to the empty air, hoping somehow she could hear him. We would have been married 40 years today, Clara. And I would trade everything I own for just one more day with you. The wind rustled through the canyon, and for a moment, Nathan could have sworn he heard Clara's laugh carried on the breeze. He smiled through his tears, remembering her joy, her strength, her fierce independence that never wavered even in love. I was warned you were trouble, Nathan said, his voice echoing off the canyon walls. Everyone told me to stay away, but I took one look at you and knew you were perfect. And I was right, Clara. You were perfect. Our life together was perfect. Every moment with you was a gift I will treasure until my last breath. He stayed in the canyon until sunset, talking to Clara as if she were beside him. He told her about the grandchildren she was missing, about Thomas running the ranch and Rose's successful school and the twins' thriving business. He told her about the new foal that was born with her same coloring. He told her he loved her, still loved her, would always love her. As the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in brilliant oranges and pinks, Nathan made his way back to his horse. He would keep living like he promised, would keep their love story alive, would make sure their children and grandchildren knew what real love looked like. Because even though Clara was gone, the love they had built together remained. It lived in their children's marriages, in their grandchildren's laughter, in the home they had created and the life they had shared. It lived in Nathan's heart, where it would burn bright until the day he finally joined her again. And somewhere, in some place beyond this world, Nathan knew Clara was waiting for him. Still fierce, still independent, still perfect. And when his time came, she would be there with that smile that transformed her whole face, ready to continue their adventure together. Until then, Nathan would live. He would love. He would remember. Because that is what Clara deserved, what their love deserved. Not an ending, but a continuation. Not grief that consumed, but gratitude that sustained. He rode back toward Pinos Altos as darkness fell, the town's lights twinkling in the distance like stars come down to earth. Home. The place where Clara's memory lived in every corner, where their love had grown from a tentative hope to an unshakable certainty. Nathan Ashford had been warned she was trouble, but he had taken one look and known she was perfect. And in the end, he had been absolutely right. Clara had been perfect. Their love had been perfect, and the life they built together had been everything either of them could have dreamed of and more. That night, Nathan sat on their porch under the stars, feeling Clara's presence in the gentle wind, in the distant call of an owl in the very air around him. And he smiled, grateful beyond measure for the troublesome, perfect woman who had taught him what it meant to truly love and be loved in return. Their story was not over, he realized. It would continue in the children they had raised, in the grandchildren who carried their features and their values, in every person whose life they had touched. Love like theirs did not end with death. It transformed, spreading outward like ripples on water, touching shores they would never see. And that, Nathan thought as he finally headed inside to sleep, was the greatest legacy of all. Not wealth or fame or accomplishment, but love. Simple, profound, transformative love that echoed through generations and refused to be contained by something as small as mortality. He had been warned she was trouble. He had taken one look and said she was perfect, and every single day of their 37 years together had proven him right. That was their story. That was their truth. And nothing, not even death itself, could change it.